Thank you all very much. That's funny because I can't hear any of it, so it's very funny. To answer the puzzle that Phil put forward, I happen to marry well, so that's why I live in Ventura. So there you go. So I'm gonna read a bunch of poems. I'll, give a little bit of introduction maybe to some of them and maybe not. But these are mostly very recent. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through okay? Very good. All right. So I'm going to begin with a poem that I wrote during the week of the Democratic Convention last year. And I thought it would be appropriate because of the time that's passed. And it's only been 9 months or almost 9 months. So just think about that in terms of where we were and where we are and where this is hopefully in between. It's called It Is What It Is. Oh, and some of the quotes I should say, some of the language is taken from the speeches of convention, but I won't go into all the minutia of the scholarly apparatus and all that stuff. Some of you might remember some of these things. It is what it is. Oh yeah, I'm grateful for the right to reset my password. In eternal gratitude to our rich home, you might think you deserve the idiot, but you're bored. That's what they said about their product. And when you forgot to take the notebook out and the picture of the maskless, shirtless rebel crossed your path, that wasn't fear in your hand, the dust of the old poem, the perpetual Eastern flower, that token of regeneration. The pink leaf suspended against the screen door might be a reminder, if our brains weren't already numb at the figures hidden on a plateau of lies. At sunrise, his ears weary from ringing through the fitful night, he could no longer tell a cricket or a bird from the chirping nocturnal option. And whatever might be left over after the downturn won't be worth as much as the $2 trillion organization. You've been typing on it all day long. It's unclear to me what good it would do to ditch the star for a chance to mingle with the infected crowd. Better to follow the path of the perennial and the cup. Soon it'll be old information that the apple is richer than our northern neighbor, and the bug killed another 1,000 by the close of market. And the more you know, the thinner the flavor, like a worn down and rotted cut of meat. Bravery resides in every heart, and one day you will be summoned. But their motto is just say no, ain't it? And those that did are gone. It wasn't that their theory was right, but we couldn't say how come it was wrong. And the broken are now part of our fabric. I don't want to hear about a bunch of kids trying to catch liberation, one of the wounded said. He was tight as you please and like a spring about to snap. And we are burning again in the woods and along the paths, not with passion, not with the drive to become radiant energy. He said, rake the leaves, won't even wash his hands. We say our fingers won't hurt the little flowers, just keep that mucky crud in the ground. And while this guy turned the wall into a Ponzi scheme, our side has love and melody and rhythm. Youth of all ages come for a whirl as we play hide and seek and frolic and dance clad in the sparkling light. This poem is called Ventura. It's, oh, thank you. This poem is called Ventura. And it may sound like I wrote it from when I first got here. I've been here 10 years this year, but it actually was probably written at the moment. I was trying to figure this out. Probably written at the moment when I really realized I wasn't leaving. It's called Ventura. The the insect-like oil wells made me think of skyscrapers. They were both positive. They were both negative and negative. Let me start this over. Sorry. The insect-like oil wells made me think of skyscrapers. They were both negative and positive thoughts. Skyscrapers conduct heat. Oil wells conduct energy. When I saw them pumping for the first time, I wanted to grab a Ross MacDonald novel. I thought of the bright, dusty roads of childhood television, of Broderick Crawford tilting his hat. Maybe I should have thought about the health of the earth. Maybe I should have lifted a leaf in solitary wonder. But I did neither of those things. It was night, and I was a passenger being driven to the future. Thank you. This is called Pumpkins, and it's dedicated to Tony Medina, who is a poet who I knew in New York, in the Lower East Side Nuyorican crowd, who is now about to retire as a full professor from Harvard University. Thank goodness that he's had that luck. He's been very good there. And he's a really wonderful poet. You should read Tony Medina's work. Anyway, this is called Pumpkins, and it's a response to a Facebook post of his. Wow, you said, and in the background, the whirring set was not enough to turn your mind from the pile of moons. No, the gluttonous dream that awaited us there, a picture that filled the frame, unmoored from use, a hint of future overindulgence, but now that evening pie was a dim glimpse of anticipation and regret as we all talked about how fine they looked. This is a poem that was published in Miramar, and it was written 2013 or so. And it was a response to the last economic crisis. But I thought, you know, if those of us who survived the pathogen are promised an economic boom, you know, the heaven of plenty and all of that. So I thought it would be of some use to remind ourselves of what plenty means under conditions of capitalist production. And also because this poem is a response to, you know, every time over the last several decades, every time we've had a economic crisis of one sort or another, unemployment crisis, Bill Clinton comes out and says, oh, there's plenty of jobs. And he has a whole argument about how there's plenty of jobs. There's always plenty of jobs for Bill Clinton. And so anyway, this is called Plenty, and it has an epigram. Here's proof that there's no job shortage, email spam. And that is true email spam. And all the language, by the way, from this is drawn from, is basically language of job advertisements of 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Well, 10 years ago, actually. Yeah, it's job advertisement language. Plenty. Here's proof that there's no job shortage, email spam. Will require an optimized point across properties to program banners, retarget, consult, guide, market. For an intake outfit looking for temporary work must have done time, preferably in consumption. Associates will monitor compliance. This individual will support compliance in matters like rule, test, verification, adequacy, effectiveness, and affix the entry-level pep talk if you sign up now. Enjoy knowing the answer to people's questions. Learn policies and procedures. Cater new accounts and existing tactical profitability functions. Enter the challenge. Reward domestic low-income protection, custody visitation, outing the league in a bilingual relief. When your disaster attorney was formed, representing people turned by appeals, an industry leader in livery grew like weeds in the biggest garment. For support in preparing and filing communications, keeper of trans trust hit like the Klondike. Work overtime from home. We value your experience with debt. For private acquisition of all aspects, practical leverage, and your integrated technical dynamic, consider malpractice. The strategic oversight candidate will activate a complex exposure reflecting another broad category, managing the craft over time by loyally renewing a highly developed focus on our merchandise. Thank you. This next poem is called Semper. It's on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X, and it's for Archie Shepp. Semper is a song that Archie Shepp recorded in memory of Malcolm X, I think on his album Fire Music, classic album for Archie Shepp. Semper. Words flirting like a cracked walnut, a black shredded leaf, uncomfortably expecting to be gobbled by fire. Anger akin to elixir, the biting fact, a ticket to roaring laughter, food for the soul when we didn't know we were hungry. And why, after nearly forgetting it all, are we still on intimate terms? His name ringing in our waxy ears like an old familiar? Only one name, the Phoenix, the tale teller, marching into our house, preaching. Many of these poems are from a manuscript called The Joyful Maker that I'm trying to get published. It's at, I think, 2 publishers right now for consideration. This is another poem of the I guess of economic crisis kind of poem in a way. Only this one is also about the problem I have. It's a personal problem, and I really have been trying to struggle with it. I don't really know how to deal with it, but it's the problem of trying to really understand right-wing discourse, like in a way that you really sort of like understand the thing. And I really have a hard time with it. I keep trying to come up with different cosmologies and all that. And forgive me if there's anybody who thinks that should be self-evident. But there's some things about it really mysterious, and this poem sort of illustrates that in a way. The decline in our standard of living. Everywhere service is lousy. The water is impure. No one to check the oil. No one to butter your bagel. You're on your own. Not a soul can fix it, whatever it is, as we fill the earth and multiply, as the leaves have been brown for years. And the other day, with a mind in winter, Old Jim Inhofe threw a snowball at the chairman just to prove you all wrong. Some of you might not know who Jim Inhofe is, but okay, seems like you all do. All right, thank you. Just look him up if you don't, Inhofe. He actually did that. He threw a snowball at the chairman of the committee to say that there's no such thing as global warming. And he did this in the Congress of the United States. And he's been there a while. So back to the reason I moved to Ventura. This is called The Gift for Sherry on our 2nd anniversary, which is before I moved to Ventura, actually. Spring winds roll through these islands, the pearl gray clouds, the greening trees, the tear-making flowers. As I spend hours tramping through the shiny streets for that perfect object to mark our love. And yet the search eludes me. What jewel can echo? What text or image match? What cloth, heaven made or not? As the streets and the shop windows fill with glitter few can afford, and searching for marble or magic, I wish I could offer something as nice as a kiss. Thank you. So for my Detroit friends, I have 2 poems. Welcome, Marty. For my Detroit friends, I have 2 poems. And so I'm just going to read, I'll read them. And this one is about, some of you may know the name John Sinclair. John Sinclair was Detroit's chief hippie well, he was Detroit's chief hippie. He was also its, paradoxically, or maybe not, it's also, for a while, its chief avant-garde poet. John Sinclair is a great poet, a great writer, and one of the inventors of what we call the counterculture. Except that it was Detroit, and so they were all social revolutionaries of the like overthrow the government stuff type thing, and just dismiss the government was their thing. Not overthrow it, just dismiss it. They were the White Panthers, they were the Rainbow Tribe, they were all of that. They were also fans of Sun Ra. And John Sinclair in the mid 70s or mid 80s, some early 80s, had a venue in an old decrepit luxury hotel of Detroit, which has now been restored, in which he would bring people like Sun Ra to the concert. And this is a memory of that. Dimly, in the rain, looked up the old hotel, perhaps on Lafayette, I don't know. The room on the 2nd floor toward the street, there could have been windows. Eyeing Google Maps again. The book Cadillac, maybe. Another abandoned, temporarily and partially restored, only the lobby renewed, the rest emptied out. One room was large and fancy and brightly lit. Chandeliers? We were in a circle on 2 levels. One night Ra was there, and a man in one of those ill-fitting suits of a 20-year-old, white shirt and tie, too big collar, a woman in a black dress with even shinier things on it, a post-teen dating couple in polyester and glittering. This next poem is a sort of traipse through aspects of Detroit history. I won't bore you with the details, except to say that the guy referred to in the last line was serving a 40-year sentence in a federal penitentiary, and he was just commuted by Trump. and he was the last Black mayor of Detroit. This is called Song, only because I don't have a better title for it yet. It's called Song. Cold, late, let me start over. Song. Cold, late winter morning, and the thug in the black car out of the gate into the snow, the blood-red snow. Come on down, the man said. Its cousin now crumbling by the river. Brick-suited buildings turned over to makers of nothing. A castle once the pride of the city, majestic, theatrical, not long ago filled with children's pictures, the upper floors turned over to small clerks and the empty steel street through the long blinded windows. And Hayden of St. Antoine knew the name the migrants gave the town, who headed into the furnace to make things, to be soaked by the rain, to be scorched by the fire, purity against the smoke. The Adams cried, naked in Paradise Alley. And when the schools shut down, there'll be nothing like it anywhere. Choose against another chance. Who will save us? The guy in the ear, with the earbud, with the ear studs, the guy with the ear studs steals away. Another reason I'm in Ventura, a love poem, Adagio. I'm almost done here. Adagio. Haze drifting over tar and thatch. The road hums and bangs. Hands over warm vapors as I think of the room behind the wall. Kinetic wound braced the figure in the unkempt wafting icebox. Paint, dried paint does not equal method. Purple cloud, red earth, mist on the low hills, and you now, warm and near. Last couple of poems. I had one long erotic poem I was going to read, but then I decided it's too long. It would take us into another century, I think, but that's all right, some other time. This is called, this is the most recent poem I've written, actually. And I should say that my interest in writing poetry is really just sort of collecting verses and thoughts that come to me during the course of a period of time. And so these poems can take forever to write, actually. But this one, and I don't even know what they're about usually until they're finished. I think that's true for some of the rest of you. At least, you know, I'm not one of those people that does too many occasional or that kind of thing. But this one, I didn't know what it was till I finished it. And then I realized that it was on the peculiar juncture between the bohemian and the modern. So that's what it's called. Actually, I have this and one other I want to read. On the peculiar juncture between the bohemian and the modern. The wine-stained book of my youth has to be a cliche. Like a not quite terminal misfortune, it lay in wait for the pratfall that arrived late. And having read all that, you can still find where they call the mass population generative. Still can't, I'm sorry, let me start this over. I'm not reading this right. Let me start over. Okay. On the peculiar juncture between the bohemian and the modern. The wine-stained book of my youth has to be a cliche. Like a not quite terminal misfortune. It lay in wait for the pratfall that arrived late. After having read all that, you can't find where they call the mass population generative. And they inherit at much higher rates too. unlike your blue noggin, and get to drive as fast as they like. We were designed to cool off. Call it a bad dream if you want, a fake image from an old movie. One idea is the guy in The Janitor Who Paints, the first version he was in. I forgot what I wanted to do that. The barbershop scene where he and Ned play at pillaring memory, named after 4 presidents, at least one a slaveholder. And when he was the picture, when he was the picture of normal, he shamed every time he showed up. The normative pillaring of memory, let me get a bookmark here. You could call it a pile of opportunity as long as you don't read it wrong. But try to run away with the ball and see how far you go. You won't excite more than a ripple, even if you try to mute the problem. He thought he could ignite a great furor, but it had already happened, and all that was left to do was to read about it in the papers. Come for the adventure and the local color. Keep the topic front and center to goad further the trolling argument like a cool breeze waiting. On the day the fountain awakes and we lament the dryness, the parched spring, the ravaging pathogen, the twitter of the natural world, where the style is pure, the vocabulary varied, and the moral severe, and where one learns mythology and geography as in a set of repeating nighttime commercials. And between market and 10th and the natural world, a tweet. And the rabbit hole of the witty phrase. These sentences ain't new. Even the bird flapping her wings is unique. But the branded ones of our day welcome the mark, the number and letter signifying ownership. Even the lemons differ from one another. Red jalopy, green jalopy, yellow jalopy, blue jalopy, while the faux hip continue to fall from the sky. So the last line of that poem is, and you may know, the Musée de Beaux-Arts by W.H. Auden. The last line of that poem is a sort of a riff on the part of the conceit of Musée de Beaux-Arts. A wonderful poem, by the way, which is far better than anything I've ever written. But then he was Auden and I'm not. But that's it. That's that. So the last thing I'm gonna read tonight, is a thing called Limbo. I actually changed a word like 20 minutes ago. So this is kind of a poem still in process, I think, maybe not. But so I've never read this version of it. Experimentation is the wonder of art, isn't it? This is called Limbo. Limbo. The hardest thing to understand is why this is not yet routine. We knew from the old tune what keeps us warm. It looks as if the bourgeoisie has not yet broken with democracy. This is to be applauded. And then there's the Palmetto guy. You know the one. He hides from mirrors. He thinks it's 1949. Just because you can do something. So let's not, he says, oppose fascism or value mercy over beauty. Yes, right there in the buzzing, gasping, the trance. Was there really something in Cassius Clay's eyes? These others will take the plunge. Imagine a wet peanut. Thank you very much.